Okay, so we are on step number 18 of the instructions, and it's saying that we are going to be pinning the wrong side of the upper ruffle to the right side of the lower ruffle. Okay, so I have my lower ruffle all completed. I have the sides hemmed. I have the bottom blind hemmed. And now what we're going to do is we are going to be taking the upper ruffle, which I have here, and we are going to be pinning wrong side of the upper ruffle to the right side of the lower ruffle. Okay, so I know which is right and wrong, right side, wrong side, all that. I am going to match those seams as best as I can. If you can't get them quite right, it's not that big of a deal because these ruffles are going to be gathered, okay? All right, so I pin. I'm also going to find my notches and I am going to match those. So I've got a notch right here and I have a notch here. So everything matches nicely. So I'm going to pin that. Then I am going to pin my edges, and I'm really happy with how these turned out because the ends match just about perfectly. And if yours didn't quite match, don't sweat it too much. If it's really, really off, then come and see me and we'll figure out what to do next. Okay, so I'm gonna add now more pins. So I want you to do all the way across the ruffle. And then we're going to sew some gathering stitches once we've basted the two ruffles together. Okay, so we are back at the machine, and now what we're going to be doing is sewing these ruffles together. Now you can use a basting stitch if you want, but I think it's totally fine if you sew them together with a normal stitch. I think that's how I'm gonna do it. And we are going to do it within the seam allowance, meaning I think I'm just gonna do like a 1/4 of an inch seam. And I think I'm gonna use my little bump jumper. There we go. So I'm gonna move the needle over. And I'm just gonna do a 1/4 of an inch. All right, now making sure that your raw edges stay together, I am gonna need my little pointer stick. All right, so we're gonna do a couple of stitches forward and we're gonna do some stitches backwards. So I'm just gonna sew these together just up at the top here, and then we'll talk about the next step. I've come to a point in the sewing of the ruffles together that I just want to draw your attention to. So you see where you have this center seam allowance on the bottom ruffle. Before you get to it, I would say stop, lift the presser foot, and make sure that the seam allowance on the other side is laying flat. If not, it's gonna fold in on itself and you're gonna run into a little bit of trouble. It'll be just really thick. All right, I'm coming to the end. So I'm just gonna slow down, don't forget to backstitch. By now you guys should be remembering those steps. All right. Okay, so now that we have the bottom and the top ruffle attached, what we're going to do is do some gathering stitches. You're going to do the gathering stitches on the machine. So all you're going to do is you are going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, okay, which should be just past where you stitched the two fabrics together. So you're going to use 3/8 of an inch. You're going to use the longest stitch on your machine, so 4 millimeters on our school machines. Now you should be able to do it on the machine just fine because you are using a lighter weight fabric than I am. I'm using kind of a canvas, and then attached to it I have another layer of fabric here. So I know that I'm probably going to have a tough time gathering, so I'm going to do my gathering stitches by hand, similar to how we were sewing by hand the running stitches. So I'm going to do that, and then we are going to gather our fabric, and we're going to measure it with the apron. Okay, so once you've that done, continue watching and we'll take a look at the next steps.